Exposed, 10 spine-chilling overtime encounters that haunted police and paramedics FOREV. Jenna's heart raced as she parked her ambulance in the cracked lot of an apartment complex that seemed to breathe menace. Every flickering light cast eerie shadows on walls laden with graffiti. Reports of unusual occurrences in this place had become legend, yet routine calls were part of her job. She took a deep breath, shaking off the weight of dread. She was trained to handle emergencies. But tonight felt different, as if the thick air whispered warnings. Just hours earlier, she kissed her 2 kids goodnight, tiny faces blissfully unaware of their mother's struggles. Their laughter echoed in her mind like a fleeting dream, fueling her determination. Yet, with each passing minute on the job, the loneliness and despair of her surroundings threatened to crush her. It felt like the world outside was closing in on them, suffocating their little bubble of happiness. Inside the apartment, the scent of decay wrapped around her like a shroud. The old man on the ground groaned, clutching his chest as she assessed his condition. She could feel her partner, Mike, behind her, his voice barely a whisper, recounting the legends of this haunted place, stories of missing residents and a dark spirit said to guard these forsaken halls. Jenna shivered, dismissing them as just tales told around the precinct-esque coffee pot. But inside, doubt gnawed at her. Her phone buzzed, shattering her focus. "I see you, Jenna." The text sent icy tendrils of fear creeping into her chest. She glanced around, but the dim lighting only revealed distorted shadows in the corners. The next message rattled her. It detailed her children's evening routine. Panic surged through her veins. How could someone know so much? "Jenna, focus," Mike's voice snapped her back. "We have to get him out. Now." She swallowed hard. "Right." But unease bubbled in her stomach as she moved through the suffocating gloom, shadows whispering threats. Outside, the sirens wailed, echoing her racing heart, each sound a reminder that all was not as it should be. She pressed her fingers against the cold metal of her equipment, feeling utterly out of place. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night dragged on, dread seeped into Jenna's bones. She could feel eyes on her, silent stares from the shadows. Each flicker of a light felt like a ghost's taunt, every creak a suggestion of danger. The thin veneer of her confidence crumbled with every passing minute. A dangerous game of trust began to unfold within this crumbling structure. Suddenly, a rustle echoed from a darkened corner, breaking the fragile silence. Was it just her racing imagination or something more sinister? Jenna's breath hitched. She turned slowly, every instinct screaming for her to run. But what if running meant leaving the truth behind? What if the lurking danger wasn't the ghost of an urban legend, but the very people standing next to her that night? The wall felt as if it were closing in, drowning her in a shroud of uncertainty. She had to know, who would she trust when even the light was betraying her? Jenna's pulse quickened as she strained to hear any further sounds from the corners of the room. The air felt heavier, charged with palpable tension. Shadows danced playfully, but she knew better. They concealed secrets, dangers festering just out of sight. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, eyes darting to Mike, who seemed unnervingly still. He stared into the darkness, that familiar look of unease creeping onto his face. "Yeah. I did." His voice barely climbed above the silence. The old man on the floor whimpered again, pulling Jenna back to the grim reality before her. "We can't waste any more time," she insisted, moving closer to examine him. The stench of mold and something more rancid clawed at her throat. She secured a pulse and grabbed the oxygen mask from her kit, mentally blocking out her fear. "Focus." A voice from the shadows echoed again, scraping against her sanity, and she could almost swear it called her name. 2 Unsettling clicks echoed from the front door, a sound too conspicuous at this hour. Jenna shared a glance with Mike, whose eyes widened imperceptibly. "Did you lock it?" he whispered, stepping back to put his body between the door and her. "I thought so, but," her voice trailed off, anxiety choking her. The door swung slowly open, revealing nothing but the yawning void of the hallway. Check the perimeter, I'll stay here with him, she urged despite a gnawing feeling that shot through her, making her wish she hadn't suggested it. Mike nodded and stepped cautiously away, his footsteps swallowed by the darkness. The old man's eyes fluttered open, and his breath came out in shaky bursts. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, each word a shroud of cold dread. "Yes, watching." A chill crept through Jenna, and her fingers twitched against the oxygen mask. Just as she was about to reply, Mike's frantic voice rose from the corridor. "Jenna! Get back!" Her stomach sank as she turned towards the sound, shadows dancing wildly now, reflecting the panic rising in her throat. She instinctively stepped away from the old man as heat flooded through her. There was no more time to think. Jenna sprinted toward the noise, adrenaline igniting every nerve in her body. "Mike!" she screamed while scanning for his figure. The air shifted, her instincts flared. She could feel it, someone was behind her. When she whipped around, a twisted silhouette barely discernible in the flickering lights made her breath hitch in her throat, but it wasn't just a shadow. It was a shape. A person, with hollow eyes and a cruel grin. "Jenna," it whispered, voice smooth and menacing. "You should VE left when you had the chance." Her heart thundered against her ribs, and time slowed. Who are you?" All bravado escaped, stripped away by sheer terror. "Someone who knows everything," it taunted, stepping closer. Jenna's pulse raced louder, the darkness closing in like a trap. She swung back, searching for Mike desperately. The old man on the floor gasped again, and she realized he was staring at the silhouette, trembling violently. Cold fear knotted in her stomach. This was no urban legend. This was something else, something human that thrived in the unknown, and it was far too real. Behind her, she heard a growl, a fierce, visceral sound that shattered her thoughts. Mike's voice followed, but it was faint, burdened with an urgency that sent a spark of panic through her. "Jenna, don't." But the entity was already lunging forward, and all she could do was stand frozen, paralyzed between the two horrifying realities, her partner's distant struggle and the looming figure that promised more darkness than she ever imagined. The dice had been cast, now she needed to decide in that fleeting moment, fight or flee. What would she choose when the shadows promised only despair? But it was too late for choices, and with a jolt, her instincts kicked in. She ran. The sudden chill that enveloped her as she turned was just the beginning. What awaited her in the throes of darkness was no longer a mere whispers of legend, but a reality that would chase her long after she escaped. It crept closer, breathing her name. What had she awakened? Jenna burst through the door, flinging herself into the dimly lit hallway. Her breath came in ragged gasps, almost a whimper. Panic enveloped her, suffocating, as she dashed down the corridor. The air felt colder, denser, as if the darkness held its breath, eagerly waiting. "Mike!" she cried out, voice trembling. Shadows warped around her, stretching toward her like claws yearning for a victim. She scanned the walls for signs of her partner, fear gripping her chest. Silence answered, heavy and wrong. Then, a subtle noise, a faint thud, followed by hurried whispers. Jenna pressed against the wall, listening. That voice, was it Mike? It slipped and twisted like smoke, echoing through the hallways, an otherworldly hiss filled with despair. "Jenna, please." It was faint but unmistakable. Mike's voice. "Get to safety." She shifted forward, feeling the rough texture of the wall beneath her fingers. In the deepest shadows, curiosity battled her instinct to flee. Was he hurt? Or worse? What had happened? Suddenly, a loud crash rang out behind her, a window breaking, shattering the silence. The sound sliced through her thoughts. Footsteps clattered closer, heavy and sudden, sending a bolt of ice through her veins. Adrenaline surged, and she turned to run again. The shifting shadows seemed to pulse with malice, orchestrating a symphony of horror. "Mike!" She screamed again, her heart drumming against her ribs. She stumbled through the corridor, seeking a glimpse of hope, but each step felt heavier, as if the darkness itself weighed her down. Just then, she caught sight of movement up ahead. A figure, outlined against the feeble light bursting from the end of the hall. Relief shot through her, but it was swiftly followed by dread. The silhouette twisted unnaturally, morphing as it approached. Jenna squinted.
Is that you, Mike?
At that moment, the figure lunged forward, and dread turned to sheer terror. She recognized the twisted mockery of a face hollow and grinning.
It wasn't he, Mike.
It was the entity from before, the one with the smooth, taunting voice.
No!
She spun, panic consuming her, forcing her to sprint back down the hall. Behind her, the footsteps were relentless, the laughter echoing in her mind, mocking her flight.
Jenna, where are you going? It taunted, its voice slithering through the air, wrapping around her like a serpent. Don't you want to play?
Heart racing, Jenna's instincts kicked into high gear. She sprinted, eyes wide, fighting against the creeping abyss looming just behind her. She could feel its breath, achingly cold, like a whisper of death at her neck. Just as Jenna rounded a corner, she stumbled into a vast room filled with old furniture cloaked in dust. She barely registered the eerie silence before moving to hide behind a tattered armchair, her breathing shallow.
Mike!
She whimpered, fear clawing at her insides.
Where are you? A hollow laugh echoed from the shadows, deep and reverberating.
He soughed so close, yet so far it sang, wrapping her in a shroud of dread. The room seemed to shrink around her as she pressed her back against the chair, trembling. Then she heard a faint glimmer of hope amidst the horror. Footsteps, hesitant and careful, echoing from another doorway.
Jenna, I'm here.
Mike's voice.
Mike!
Hope surged, but it was woven tightly with fear. She couldn't tell if it was truly him or another cruel trick. She steadied her breath, willing her heart to slow, trying to summon the courage to make a move.
Don't listen to that voice. Mike's urgency sliced through the darkness. You need to find me. Hurry!
Before she could react, the room surged with icy winds, scattering dust like tiny ghosts in the air. Shadows danced wildly, twisting and bending at impossibly sharp angles. Jenna the entity crooned, rising up from the depths of the darkness, its hollow gaze boring into her.
You're trapped. This is your home now.
Every instinct in her screamed to flee, but Jenna was paralyzed by terror. The shadows drifted closer, and then she felt a cold, clammy hand brushing against her arm, dragging her back into the
darkness.
There was no escape, not from this. In that moment of despair, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. Something was inescapably wrong with Mike. He was not who he seemed. She had to choose: confront the entity and risk everything, or trust her instinct and run toward the only sound that could save her. But in the fading breath of night, what awaited her on the other side of that choice?
Jenna, it whispered, sending chills through her body. You're already mine. As the darkness engulfed her, the question loomed: could she escape the truth waiting in the shadows?
Jenna fought against the grip of the unseen hand, the coldness seeping into her skin, spreading through her body like poison. With a desperate gasp, she wrenched her arm free, stumbling backward into a wall of dust-laden shadows. Panic clawed at her throat as the entity's face twisted in a grotesque mockery of a smile.
Stop running!
It howled, voice a cacophony of cracking glass and gravel.
You only prolong the inevitable. The air thickened, stifling her breaths. The laughter echoed around her, a taunting melody drifting through the dimness, alive with sinister glee.
Jenna's heart hammered against her ribs like a caged animal, begging for freedom.
Mike!
She screamed, but the word felt hollow, lost in the oppressive gloom.
Was he even alive? Did he call out for her, or was that twisted voice just giving her false hopes?
Doubt knotted her mind, dragging her further into despair, yet the whispers of those footsteps lingered, as if they were an echo of something true. On instinct, she surged toward the sound, hurling herself past the old furniture, the dust swirling like phantoms in her wake.
In the narrow hallway, shadows loomed ominously at the corners, shifting and coiling like serpents on the prowl. Don't you want to stay? The entity called after her, its voice echoing menacingly. You're already one of us.
The words twisted in her mind, and a chill ran down her spine. She stumbled, catching herself against a doorframe, her heart teetering between hope and despair. The figure of Mike flickered in her memory, but she shoved it aside.
This was not the time for memories.
She needed to survive. Pushing through the haze of fear, she reached the next doorway, the faintest shimmer of light cutting through the all-consuming darkness. She threw herself through, landing in an old storage room filled with relics long forgotten, boxes piled high, covering an array of useless junk. A cracked window allowed a sliver of pale moonlight to illuminate the dust motes floating lazily in the air.
Jenna! That voice. He was here, so close now. Her heart surged, yearning to connect.
But doubt kept her feet rooted in place, fear coiling tighter with every passing moment. The entity's laughter enveloped her, spilling through the door like a fog.
You think you can escape? I'm everywhere. I always know. Don't listen to it. Mike shouted, desperation evident in his voice. Find me, Jenna. It's trapped in the darkness, it can't follow you into the light.
A flicker of realization sparked within her light. The only weapon she had was the silver gleam filtering through the window. Jenna turned toward it, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had to act, but just as she turned, cold fingers brushed against her cheek, sending a shuddering wave of revulsion. She recoiled, turning in a frantic circle, searching for an escape. But the door swung open, revealing the shadows that stretched like claws over the threshold. Jenna, the entity hissed, a wicked grin splitting its face.
You can't hide from me.
She leaped toward the window, mustering every ounce of courage.
The entity lunged, shadows swirling around it like a cloak.
It was right there, its chilling presence almost suffocating.
Let go of me.
She shouted, her voice fierce. She plunged her hand into the sliver of light, reaching grasping. The moment her fingers made contact with the outside, a shock of warmth enveloped her, and she felt a sudden shift. The darkness screamed, a high-pitched wail that raked against her ears. The entity was in agony, but she had to leap. In one desperate movement, she vaulted toward the window, unsure if it'd be her salvation or damnation. With a final shout, she hurled herself through the opening, and then, darkness swallowed her whole. The air shifted, and Jenna realized she was suspended in nothingness, twirling on the edge of consciousness, a heartbeat away from the other side.
Jenna!
Micah's frantic voice pierced through the haze.
Fight! But fight against what? What lay beyond the void?
The question hung heavily as shadows threatened to pull her back under.
In that
moment, the fight for her soul had only just begun.
What was waiting for her when she landed, freedom or the depths of despair?
And as the darkness clawed its way toward her once more, she feared it was not just her own fate that hung in balance, but Micah's too.
Jenna jolted awake, gasping for air.
The whispering void had given way to an eerie stillness, but the overwhelming chill still clung to her. Cold sweat coated her skin, her heart a drum pounding wildly. She rolled onto her back, eyes darting to take in her surroundings, but the sight was not the relief she hoped for. She was not outside. Instead, she lay on a damp, uneven concrete floor beneath flickering fluorescent lights.
Shadows danced along the walls, stretching and shortening as if they had lives of their own.
The air was thick, humid, and tainted with an acrid smell that made her stomach churn.
Mike?
She called out, voice trembling. Silence enveloped her, thick as the darkness she had escaped. Panic pressed against her chest, cold fingers clawing at her sanity.
Had she truly found safety?
Or was this another trap? Her breath quickened as she pushed herself up, eyes straining against the harsh light.
She could see metal shelves lined with dusty medical supplies and worn-out equipment. A hospital? Or the remnants of one? The realization set her on edge.
Suddenly, a low creaking sound broke the silence. The noise came from a solid metal door at the end of the room. The knob turned slowly, a nauseating creak echoing in the air. Hope ignited in her chest.
Maybe it was Mike, maybe he made it too.
But as the door swung open, her heart sank. Instead of Mike, a tall, gaunt figure stepped through, face obscured by shadows. A doctor's coat hung loosely from its skeletal frame, and its skin glimmered like oil in the dim light. "Welcome back to the living," it rasped, voice oily and smooth yet riddled with malice. "You'll serve a greater purpose here." Jenna froze, fear locking her muscles in place. The room felt alive, the shadows writhed closer, curling around her like hungry snakes. The entity, the one that had tormented her before, was now somehow manifested in this twisted form. Instinct kicked in, and she darted to her feet, rushing past the shelves, her fingers barely brushing the items strewn upon them. She felt the cold breath of the ghoul on her neck, urging her to hurry as chaos erupted in her mind. Choice is merely a facade. The doctor's spirit cackled, footsteps relentless behind her. You've already made your pact. She ran through another door, finding herself in a lone, sterile hallway. The scent of bleach bit into her lungs. Shadows elongated, beckoning her to surrender to the darkness. Mike! She shouted again, desperation edging her voice. Jenna! His voice reached her, strained yet alive. It urged her onward. But with each frantic step, fear twisted like a knife in her gut. Was he close, or was it merely her hope talking? She dashed into a room, finding herself surrounded by equipment, an operating table adorned with rusted instruments. The walls were coated with unsettling sketches, bloodied hands reaching for the ceiling, each stroke a cry for help. The lights flickered violently, and she could hear the delicate, rhythmic beeping of heart monitors. Her heart pumped rapidly, in sync with their ominous chorus. Jenna, please. Mike's voice crackled from somewhere further in. They're not alive like us? It's a trap. Come to me. Where are you? She cried, her breath labored. I'm coming. I won't leave you. But with that, she heard a sickening laugh echo through the halls, morphing into a wailing frenzy. It wrapped around her, strangling her resolve. The doctor's figure loomed behind her, its eyes hollow voids filled with darkness. Your friend is lost, just like you had hissed, words like venom. You are all mine. Jenna turned, fighting against the overwhelming dread pulling at her every step. She had to find him. Had to break through this maze of despair. She couldn't let the darkness consume them both. With newfound adrenaline, she pushed forward, determined to navigate the twisting corridors, not knowing what awaited at the end. The looming question nagged at her mind. Would she find Mike in time, or would they both become yet another whisper in the shadows? And as she raced ahead, she felt the walls seeming to shift and pulse, closing in around her a heartbeat of their own, as if the building breathed with its secrets. Secrets that whispered of unspeakable horrors yet to come. Jenna stumbled into the next corridor, her breath ragged and shallow. It felt like the walls were alive, shifting and closing in as the shadows stretched toward her. The laughter of the ghoul echoed relentlessly in her ears. It taunted her, wrapping around her heart like a vice. She had to find Mike. The fluorescent lights flickered again, casting wild shadows that danced like fireflies in the dark. Each flicker seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her fear. She pressed onward, the air growing thicker with each step, filling her lungs with a suffocating dread. The beeping of monitors grew louder, a twisted percussion feeding into her panic. Mike! She screamed, hope desperately clinging to her voice. The emptiness that followed gnawed at her, twisting her stomach into knots. She turned a corner and slammed into a wall of cold steel. A door loomed before her, marked with a red cross, a cruel reminder of the horror that lurked inside. She hesitated, heart racing, but Mike's voice cut through the silence again, fragile, urgent. Jenna! Get in here! Hurry! Heart pounding, she clasped the cold metal handle and yanked it open. The room beyond was dimly lit, a small chamber filled with sterile equipment, but the air was heavy with a sense of wrongness. A body lay on the table, motionless, covered with a white sheet stained crimson, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded here. No, she gasped, eyes wide with horror. Was this what awaited her if she failed? Come, Jenna. Mike urged again, sounding so close but still out of reach. You have to trust me. She swallowed hard, steeling herself against the rising tide of nausea. With every ounce of courage, she stepped inside the room. The door slammed shut behind her, a loud, resounding sound that echoed through the quiet space like a warning bell. Sudden footsteps echoed outside, heavy and deliberate. Jenna's heart raced as she turned around, frantically looking for a place to hide. The laughter from earlier returned, now mixed with a low, deep growl. Where do you think you're going? The voice from the hallway sneered, closer now. You all belong to me. She ducked behind the table, her body trembling as she held her breath. Darkness enveloped her, thick and warm, but the stench of decay seeped into the room, pulling her back to reality. The door rattled, and she felt a rush of adrenaline.
She had to move. Jenna!
Mike's voice cut through the chaos. It was coming from another room, a soft whisper laced with desperation.
Mike!
She echoed, ignoring the fear gnawing at her. She ducked low, using the shadow of the table for cover as she peeked over the edge.
The door rattled again.
Then, the darkness outside began to spill into the room.
The ghouless figure emerged, eyes gleaming with malice.
"You can't hide from your fate," it hissed, slivers of shadow creeping toward her.
Jenna's pulse quickened. She couldn't let it find her.
As quietly as she could, she edged away from the table, eyes fixed on the door leading to the corridor where Mike's voice beckoned her. The room was a maze of menace. Each corner seemed alive with malicious intent, like the walls were closing in on her. She slipped quietly between the shadows, every heartbeat resonating through the still air. As she reached the door, it swung open, revealing another figure, a man shrouded in darkness.
"You need to hurry,"
he said, voice hoarse but urgent. Before she could register the familiarity of his face, cold fingers clutched her arm, yanking her back into the blackness.
"Not so fast." The ghoul cackled, and Jenna felt an icy grip around her throat, squeezing tight. "Let go of her!"
Mike shouted from the shadows. Jenna struggled, gasping for breath, desperation clawing at her as shadows closed around her. She could see Mike's outstretched hand, his eyes wide with terror. With one final cry, she fought against the ghoul's grasp, determination flooding through her. But just as she thought she was breaking free, the lights flickered and went out, plunging her into a consuming darkness. What awaited her in that suffocating void? Jenna gasped as the darkness swallowed her whole. Time stretched and warped in the void. Her breath came in gasps, panic rising like bile. She was alone, the laughter, the shadows, everything was gone. The cold squeezed tighter around her throat. She fought against the panic, forcing herself to focus. Where was Mike? Was he safe? She struggled to remember how she had gotten here. The ghostly warmth of his closeness faded, leaving only echoes. A sudden noise broke through the stillness, a creaking, slow and deliberate, like a heavy door opening. She could almost feel the anticipation thrumming in the air, as if something terrible was about to happen. "Mike," she whispered. No answer. Only silence. She stepped forward, her foot hitting cold, hard ground. Her eyes struggled to adjust, but flashes of dim light danced at the edges of her vision, revealing grotesque shapes that seemed to spectate her movements, their intentions obscured. She pressed against the wall, feeling the cool touch of metal beneath her fingers, hoping for some familiar structure to guide her. "Help!" A voice rasped from the darkness, sending icy fingers of dread crawling up her spine. "Who is there?" Jenna called out, voice trembling. "Help me, please." The voice sounded familiar but was warped, distorted. A chill ran through her, it was pleading yet commanding. "Who?" She stepped carefully forward, searching for the source. "Jenna, I can't see." Hope flickered in her chest. "Mike?" Right here," he croaked, his figure swimming into focus. He appeared disheveled, clothes torn, blood marring the fabric. Fear wrapped around her heart, squeezing tightly. "I thought I lost you." Before she could reach him, the temperature in the room dropped. A cold wind swept through like an omen, stirring her hair and raising the hairs on the back of her neck. Shadows crept towards them, their movement unnatural, less like gliding and more like slithering. "They're coming," Jenna said, panic spilling over. "We need to go." But Mike shook his head, eyes wide with a mix of fear and something more primal. "We can't go back. The ghoul, it wants us here." "What do you mean?" she demanded, desperation clawing at her voice. "Don't you see?" He pointed toward the edges of their dimly lit prison, where darkness pooled like liquid shadows. "It hunts us through our fears. It's feeding off of us, Jenna." His words sank in, and Jenna felt something inside her shatter. The laughter returned, echoing, mocking. "Feed on your fears," it hissed. "What do you mean?" Jenna shouted into the void, frustration twisting her stomach. "Each moment we hesitate, each doubt it grows stronger." Mike's voice was urgent, shaking. "We have to confront it. Together." He moved closer, his hand reaching for hers. As their fingers intertwined, a flame ignited in her heart. Jenna could feel the warmth of his presence, pulling her out of the icy grip of despair. But then, the room trembled. The shadows recoiled like spooked animals, then rushed forward, eager and hungry.
Jenna!
Mike cried out, but she could barely hear him over the roar of the darkness. It enveloped them, pulsating with dread, and Jenna felt her resolve flicker like a dying flame. They were both breathing harder, but what if confronting the ghoul meant facing their greatest fears? What if they were consumed before they had a chance to fight back? With a surge of adrenaline, she dared to speak into the abyss.
What do you want?
The silence thickened, pressing down on her. The shadows stilled, waiting. As her question hung in the dark, nothing answered until the whispers returned, with more fervor than before. They were now countless, a chorus of lost souls.
Let us out.
And then she understood, they were trapped.
But why?
What was this place truly? Behind her, as if sensing her epiphany, something stirred.
Jenna!
Mike shouted, pulling her to him as the shadows writhing along the walls began to converge, taking a new, horrifying form. Before her eyes, it shifted, twisted, and revealed a ghastly face. Mike's face twisted in agony and fury.
No! She cried, realization dawning. But the
ghoul's laughter rolled over her like a wave, drowning out her thoughts, pulling her into its depths.
What was real, and what was illusion?
The lines began to blur, and the shadows whispered once more, urging her to give in. What would she choose to confront next? The shadows tightened their grip, the laughter rising into a deafening crescendo. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a reminder of her impending doom. The ghastly face looming before her warped and twisted, distorting into a shape that felt all too familiar, yet nightmarishly threatening. "Mike, it's not real," she stammered, her voice quaking.
"Fight it!"
His face returned briefly in a flash of desperation, but then it morphed again into a grotesque composite, the eyes hollow, the mouth locked in a scream that echoed through her mind. She could feel Mike slipping further from her grasp, pulled into an abyss of terror.
"Jenna!"
His voice shouted through the turmoil, slicing through the laughter in whispers.
Desperate, she tore her gaze away from the monstrous visage of the ghoul. She had to remember. Remember who they were, what they valued. Think, Jenna.
She urged herself.
What scares you the most?
The shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing her fragility. A flicker of defiance ignited in her. She focused on her greatest fear, not the darkness or the voices, but their isolation. The real terror lay in being alone, without connection, without love.
"I choose to fight for us,"
she screamed into the void.
"I choose love."
Suddenly, a searing light exploded from her heart, crashing through the darkness like a beacon.
The ghoul shrieked in agony, its horrific form wavering. It thrashed, the echoes of tortured souls stirring like angry bees. "Jenna!"
Mike's call broke through the din, and she felt his warmth, a steady pulse in the chaos. She focused on that warmth, determined to cling to it despite the madness.
"Hold on!"
she yelled, pushing back against the nightmares creeping at the edge of her mind. But as she turned to face the ghoul again, its form had shifted once more, twisting into something darker, her childhood fears materializing.
Shadows stretched into scenes from her past, moments of embarrassment and doubt. "Jenna, remember." Mike's voice rang out. "Together. We bring the light. Together."
She echoed, fusing the resolve deep in her core. She reached for him, and their fingers intertwined tighter than before, warm against the chilling dread enveloping them. The darkness writhing along the walls surged ahead, monstrous tendrils reaching for them.
The light sparked again, stronger this time.
And then, from the depths of the shadows, a voice boomed, richer and more terrifying than all the others combined.
"You cannot escape. It's a lie," Jenna shouted defiantly.
The ghoul's mocking laughter faltered, and for an instant, she saw a flicker of its true form, twisted and broken, a remnant of forgotten pain.
"We will escape together. Your power is fear and love overwhelms it."
With every ounce of strength, she pushed forward, and as the light illuminated their surroundings further, a surge of raw energy coursed through her. The darkness screamed, unaware that it had overplayed its hand, but just as victory seemed to hover within reach, the room shuddered violently.
The walls pulsed and shook, and the anguished whispers grew louder, drowning out every rational thought. Made you who you are, Jenna, do you really think you can defeat your own darkness? Mike's grip faltered, his face twisting with fear. Jenna! Fight it! I want to let go!
She cried, her voice breaking. The shadows shivered, as if hesitating, and for a moment, the room fell into a hesitant silence, the oppressive weight of despair thickened around them. The ghoul's laughter resumed, bolstered by its ancient power, taunting her deepest insecurities. Embrace your fear or face oblivion, it hissed. Jenna felt the walls closing in, dread pulsing through her, and then she glimpsed something glimmering in the darkest corner.
A way out?
Or another deceit masked in hope, as shadows surged, intertwining once more with Mike's anguished face twisting into an image that shook her resolve. Jenna's heart raced as she realized there was no easy escape.
She took a breath. We have to make a choice, but what if the choice would break them both rather than save them? What awaited on the other side of that shimmering light?
The shimmering light pulsed softly, a heartbeat against the suffocating darkness.
Jenna's eyes flared with determination, but doubt gnawed at her core. Could they really find safety on the other side? Or was it another trap, cloaked in radiant deception? Jenna!
Mike's frantic voice reached her, wrapped in layers of terror.
What are we waiting for? I don't know if it's safe.
She shouted back, frantic energy crackling around them.
It could be another illusion.
But the shadows were right there, groping at their ankles, cold and clammy, trying to pull them down into their eternal grasp. The laughter roared louder, a grotesque symphony that rattled her bones.
Together, remember. We have to decide.
Mike's strength surged back at her, and for a moment, the terror receded, replaced by hope.
Okay. On 3.
Jenna yelled, her heart racing.
1, 2. The ghoul shrieked in fury, a bone-chilling wail that froze the air solid.
The laughter morphed into a cacophony of mocking voices, chanting her name in derision.
Jenna! Jenna! Will you fight for love or flee forever? Now!
She urged, and together they hurled themselves toward the light. The moment they crossed into the glow, Jenna was met with an onslaught of memories. Bright, vivid scenes flooded her mind: birthday parties, laughter, the first time they kissed.
But in a split second, those cherished moments twisted into nightmarish specters, phantoms of betrayal and regret. Jenna! Mike gasped. Don't let it in.
It's twisting our memories. She clutched her head, the memories spiraling out of control.
I can't hold them back. From amidst the brilliance, shadows slithered, shapeshifting into figures too familiar. Family members with accusatory glares, friends whispering in disapproval. You'll never escape. They hissed. You're not worthy of love. You're eternally alone. No.
A roar erupted from her throat, shaking the darkness.
I am not alone. I have Mike.
With that proclamation, she felt a surge of warmth blossom inside her again.
I'm here, Jenna.
Mike's voice was clear now, cutting through the oppressive noise.
Remember us, remember who we are.
She focused on him, fighting through the haze, and together they conjured up memories that brought a smile: a lazy Sunday afternoon, the way his hands felt holding hers, the secret promises they made. Those threads of love wove a protective barrier around them.
Love is stronger. Jenna cried, grounding herself.
Another wave of light burst forth, banishing the figures from her sight and forcing the ghoul back, its screams piercing the air with unwelcome fury.
I will fight.
She shouted defiantly, feeling the light engulf them, pushing away the encroaching shadows. Yet as the darkness receded, another form emerged, a shadow too familiar, cloaked in sorrow.
Jenna's breath caught.
It was her younger self, standing alone, eyes wide with fear.
Don't look at her. Mike warned, but it was too late.
The weight of her past pressed down like chains.
What do you want?
Jenna whispered, her heart trembling. The younger version only pointed, despair reflecting in her eyes, mirroring Jenna's own doubts. You don't deserve this. Jenna felt as if the world was cracking beneath her feet.
No.
she shouted at her past self, shaking her head.
I do deserve love. I do. But before she could grasp that affirmation, shadows surged once more, and the ghoul laughed loudly, unabated. Your heart is weak, Jenna. Look at her.
It's your fault, she lost suddenly, the realization settled like ice in her veins.
What if everything they say is true? What awaited her in the depths of that darkness? Was she really strong enough to face the real monster that lurked in the corners of her mind?
A new wave of shadows loomed, blocking the light, ready to drag them down.
Jenna's breath quickened. It's coming for us,
she screamed, and the terror felt so real, so palpable.
They needed to make another choice, but what if this time, it led to oblivion? The shadows roared, a tumultuous wave crashing against Jenna and Mike.
Dread surged within them, a tangible force, but in that moment of chaos, something shifted in the air. A spark of courage caught flame.
Jenna clenched Mike's hand tighter, grounding herself.
His warmth gave her strength, a flickering light amidst the encroaching darkness. Together, she shouted, her voice echoing against the walls, rallying against despair.
We fight for us. They had faced fear before, but now, they faced something deeper, an abyss of their own insecurities, everything they ever feared.
As they steeled themselves, the ghoul's laughter echoed around them.
You think you can defeat me? Memories will always haunt you. Shadows twisted, their voices mocking, taunting the very essence of who they were.
But Jenna could feel it, a swell of defiance rising in her chest.
We won, let you win,
she yelled, forcing herself to focus on the moments that had shaped them, their first date, the way he smiled when he saw her, moments of laughter and joy.
You cannot take those away from us.
In a split second, visions of their happiest memories flashed before her eyes, glimmers of light in the surrounding darkness. As they stood firm, Jenna drew that light within her, allowing it to surge, feeling warmth radiate from her core.
This is who we are,
she practically screamed, and to her disbelief, the shadows faltered, recoiling from the brilliance. Suddenly, Mike's face appeared, alive and triumphant, breaking through the noise.
You're stronger than your doubts. Embrace the love. Their joint affirmation formed a potent wave, crashing through the darkness, illuminating the cavernous space.
Jenna pivoted, channeling every ounce of love, every cherished moment. The ghoul screeched, its twisted visage contorting in fear as it recoiled from their radiant truth. The shadows writhed, dispersing as light surged forward.
No one deserves to be trapped in a nightmare, Jenna roared. We choose hope.
Just then, the younger version of Jenna emerged again, tears glistening in her innocent eyes. Jenna felt a heavy weight in her heart.
It's okay, she reached out. You are worthy. We all are, don't let them bind you.
The young girl hesitated, confusion swirling in her gaze. But then Jenna sensed the change, a flicker of recognition, as if the younger version could see beyond the facade. I can break free, she whispered, as Jenna encouraged her to step into the warm light. The shadows wailed, losing their grip as the younger Jenna accepted her place among them.
Together, they illuminated the dark recesses, banishing lingering fears into the void.
And as they stepped forward, hand in hand, the ghoul screamed, its essence fracturing amid their union of light and love.
You cannot defeat us,
Jenna shouted defiantly, surging through the corridors of her mind.
We are not defined by our fears.
With one final push, they hurled themselves into the blinding light, and the ghoul's anguished wails echoed behind them, growing dangerously faint. As reality settled around Jenna, she blinked, taking stock of her surroundings. They lay on the cool, concrete floor of the ambulance garage under the flickering fluorescent lights.
Mike's frantic grasp on her still firm, but the oppressive weight of darkness was finally lifted.
The tension that had gripped her heart dissipated, replaced by relief. We did it, she murmured, tears of joy trickling down her cheeks. Yes, Mike breathed, awe and triumph laced within his every word.
We faced it together. The shadows that once clung to them vanished into the ether, leaving only echoes of memories, remnants of a battle won.
They slowly climbed to their feet, the garage alive with soft whirs and distant sirens, the world continuing its cyclical dance. Holding on to each other, Jenna whispered, "Let us go home." Together, they stepped into the dawn light shimmering on the horizon, hearts light and spirits renewed. They had battled the darkest parts of themselves and emerged victorious, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever life had to offer next, and in that moment, surrounded by the kind of quiet strength only love can forge, they knew they were not alone. Thank you for joining Jenna and Mike on this nail-biting journey of courage and resilience. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could be even more intense. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you enjoyed the ride. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. What did you think? And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel.